NetSupport School offers a technician's console, also called the Tech Console, to help support IT teams managing their infrastructure and student devices. You can launch this by clicking on the NetSupport School Tech Console icon that has a wrench on it. If you don't see the icon on your desktop, what you need to do is run the installer and make sure you specifically select the Tech Console component to install onto any IT or admin devices. The first time you set it up, you won't see any student devices. You're going to need to direct your tech console to the students it wants to connect to. You can click on the options bar, go into settings, and then determine how you want to connect to your student devices. There's options at startup to browse and connect to students starting with a specific prefix or to connect to a known list of students. You will need to set up that known list of students by going to modify your student list in the options option. You can browse your network. It will show you any available students. That would be devices that have the client installed on them, and you can select them and add them to your list. The Tech Console connects to not only students, but also to teachers. It should be noted, though, that if you are using a NetSupport School for non-Windows license, supporting student devices on Chrome, Android, Mac, or iOS, it will only connect to the student devices as the license is only aligned to connect to those types of devices. If you wish to connect to teacher devices and provide support to them, you need a NetSupport School Windows or all platform license. In that case, you will be able to see not only the student devices, but also teacher devices as well and provide support to them. Now, once you're logged into the NetSupport School Tech Console and you do have your students lined up, you'll notice that there will be different colors available for the different icons. All of my students are logged in right now, so I'm seeing a colored PC because all the machines are on. However, none of them are currently in a class. If they were, they would be showing as green to indicate that they're connected to a student or connected to a teacher. If they were showing as brown, then it would be a teacher who is available instead of a student. So that gives you that visual indicator of who you're seeing. And you'll see a gray PC if the machine itself is off. You'll have a main thumbnail view just like you do in the NetSupport School Tutor console that does allow you to then remote into each of the devices. By double-clicking on an individual icon, we now have the ability to share, watch, or control the screen. Sharing allows you and the end user to retain control simultaneously, so they can continue working on their machine, but you can also then use your mouse. It will interfere with each other because as you move the mouse, it will stop them from moving the mouse and vice versa. So this is more ideal if they are going to need to retain control to occasionally do certain actions for you, but you also may be able to go in and assist. Changing to watch mode will mean that you do not impact their keyboard or mouse, and changing to control locks their keyboard and mouse and only allows you to have control. You can change these defaults in the NetSupport School Tech Console settings to default from share to watch or control just based off of your preferences. Those are found in the options menu in the NetSupport School Tech Console. Optimizing will allow you to change the color depth to improve speed or quality. So depending on your network speeds and also the types of devices your students are using, you may want to go in here and adjust this by changing the bandwidth to lower bandwidth, higher quality or lower color, and also the highest quality versus high or true color on the machines. Selecting Control-Alt-Delete will do the same actions as if you did them on the end user's device, allowing you to open the task manager or other items on their machine. You can blank the student's screen so that while you're working on their device, they can't see what you're doing. Your view will still be a clear view of their screen, but theirs will show up as blacked or blanked. They will see an indicator on here that they're being connected to by a specific NetSupport console user, and it will state the logged on user's name. In this case, we're logged in as NSL Demo Client 01, so that's what shows up on their screen. This is for privacy and security to make sure that the end users always know who's connecting to them so that there are no inappropriate connections taking place. When you're done either entering a password or doing something that you need to do, simply click on blank again, and that removes from the student screen, and now you can continue supporting the end user. You have the ability to take screenshots and also to log in or log out to the student device and reboot it as needed. And you can make changes to how you view the screen depending again on your network and also making sure that things are functioning properly. You may also want to go full screen rather than scale to fit if you need a larger screen to be able to view what's going on the student's device. The clipboard tools allow you to copy from your device onto theirs or to copy from what's on their clipboard over onto yours in case there's something that they need to copy for you and you need to fetch so you have that same exact context or text. And then the quick launch feature allows you to add programs that you may typically want to run on an end user's device so that you can do that quickly or turn something on without having to find the icon or find the executable. You can go to the add button, type in the name of the application, and then search that application in the folders to add that to your list of quick launch applications. I might want to go down to my desktop perhaps. Go. And I'll choose my NetSupport Notify console. Click open, type in notify, and click OK. And now I have that available. I can click that and then I can choose launch application to run that on my end user's device. You also have individual support tools. The task manager and file transfer are both available, as well as the chat feature and the annotate feature, which is specific to viewing an individual student or end user's screen. So grabbing on the annotate gives you a set of tools that you can use to help highlight things that you need them to focus on or to redirect them towards what they're looking for. Turning off annotate will remove those notations from their screen and allow them to continue on as normal. And then the audio option allows you to have a one-way or a two-way conversation with your end user. If you choose to listen, you can hear whatever is going on their PC that's being caught up by the microphone or being played via their audio. You can talk to them without them being able to communicate back to you, or you can open it a two-way communication between yourself and the end user if you need to guide them through something and have them respond back to you. And then you can turn the audio off whenever you're done with any of those communications. Now within the tech console, you'll notice a array of tools that you can use. So if I select an individual user here, I can choose to file transfer. So I can select files from their machine or my machine to copy back and forth. If I need to grab a specific file on their machine or update something that they have, or if I need to drop something on the machine because I need to run the program later or address an issue on the computer, I can do that. I can create a folder on the remote computer's machine. So go to desktop, create folder, create the name and click OK. And now that folder is available on the desktop just so I can go ahead and match everything. I can synchronize folders. That's going to match your folders with their folders. Unlikely unless you want to match a device that's going to be similar to theirs. So if you've already set up a student device, you have the tech console on it and you want to match all the folders between the devices, but it is available. And if you are on the student's device and they happen to have a folder available, you can also delete or rename a folder from their machine. You can also print a list of the files or folders from the student's machine so that you have that as a record of what's there, perhaps at the beginning of the year, compare against the end of the year to see what changes were made if you need to. And you can also go in and see any recent files that have been added or used on the machine. Now on the package feature, you can actually create a folder and then create a package of things that you want to make available to send out to the students as well. Alternatively, if you have multiple students highlighted, you can do file distribution, where you can mass deliver a folder or a file all at once to all of the students. This is incredibly helpful if you want to drop an EXE on all the student machines and then run a script to start that on all the machines at once to get everything up to date for the school year, or to be able to update a machine if necessary so you don't have to physically touch each machine. Works similarly to the file transfer feature, where you can set the destination, you can copy or create folders, rename them, and then add things to the machine as you need to. You'll also have the ability to edit the registry of the machines. Now notice when I open the registry and I open any of these tools up top, it doesn't open a similar tool on the end user's machine. So it's not going to impact their ability to continue working, and it's not going to interfere with what they're doing. So I can silently provide support in the background, but it will pull up their registry of their machine, and I can go in there and I can make changes as if I was editing the registry directly on their device, because that's what you're doing. Same thing works for the task manager. It's going to open that up and allow me to see all the processes, applications, and services that are running. I can print a list of all the details, again, so I have that on record, or I can export a file of the current information and be able to have that to compare or to save as a record for later in case I'm doing some form of support and I need to know exactly what was running at the time when I was providing that support. You also have the ability to start, stop, pause, and restart services, just as if you were using the task manager on the student's device. And then their inventory feature is going to pull a hardware and software and hotfixes inventory for each of the machines. Now I can go in and I can click refresh and it will quickly update it and show me the date, the timestamp, so I know exactly when the last inventory was pulled. I can print this or export this to a file so I have a copy. It breaks it down individually into the hardware and software just to make it easier to read, and it will show you everything from the file name to the version number, where it's located, and who has produced it if we have the information available. On the hotfixes side, I can see the most recent hotfixes and find out if they were verified correctly, if verification failed, or if we were unable to verify. And clicking on the individual item will open the support tab for Microsoft and show us the specific hotfix, what exactly it was, when it was released, and all the important information we need about the hotfix so we know what's happening related to that. On remote command prompt, again, it's going to work similarly to opening it on the student's device, only it's going to open it with a white background instead of a black background. In this case, we can go ahead and we can type in any of our commands, whatever we might need to do. We can stop and start as needed and adjust so we can run the command prompt in the background on the student device. And we can also run PowerShell on the student's device. Now, in this case, you can see we need a username and password for the remote session if we want to run it as another user. So to be able to run it as an administrator, if the student is logged in and doesn't have admin rights, which is very common. And that way you're able to do everything you need to do with, again, not impacting what the student is currently doing on the device and not interrupting their class time. It will prompt you if you try to close out to either say yes to exiting it or no to continuing it to prevent you from accidentally stopping something in the middle of your processes that you're working on. Launch application is that quick launch we talked about earlier that was available when viewing a student. The ability to go in and add applications that you use frequently and want to be able to run the student machines or any machine without having to double click the icon or find the executable file. You also have the ability to lock and unlock student devices. So if you do need to go in and prevent them from using the keyboard and the mouse on their machine, you can do that. Throws up a full screen lock. So unlike the control option where they can still see what you're doing, this is just ending their ability to utilize the device and stopping them from having access to the keyboard and mouse while having a lock screen pop up, letting them know, hey, you cannot use this device. This may be the most important to use when you need to go to the student to address something and you don't want to wait for them to recognize a message that you sent them or to wait for the teacher to call on them and tell them that tech support is coming. In this case, you can lock the device and you can let students or staff know if this happens. It's because there is some sort of pressing issue and you don't want them further doing anything that might damage the device. Then we'll go ahead and unlock the device. You'll also have your power on and power off features and the ability to reboot machines. So it's great for the end of the day. So you can go in and close down all of your machines in a testing lab, for example, or a computer lab, or if there's any laptops that were left on that you need to turn off so that way after an update, they can be turned off and the updates can be applied. Or if you need to reboot a machine. Note that power on is wake on LAN, so the devices do have to be connected to a landline. It won't work for wireless devices that are not currently connected through an Ethernet cable. You can remotely log in and log out, or you can go in and send Control-Alt-Delete, or CAD for short, to students or to end user devices to be able to support them. The Manage Account feature is just going to go in and show you who the logged on username is, and you can modify that if you need to for an end user. And then the Stop Student feature is relatively new to NetSupport School, so if you've used prior versions, you wouldn't have seen this before. This enables you to stop the client on specific or all machines for a limited amount of time or until the machine is restarted. This is most common in testing scenarios where you're running some sort of testing software that requires any sort of monitoring software like school to be shut down as it's seen as a risk or potential cheating hazard by those testing companies. And so in that case, if you're running something and you do need to shut down the student client so it doesn't interfere with testing, you can choose one of three options. One, the student is stopped now and won't be available until the machine is restarted. Note that if you do that, the machine has to be manually restarted by the end user by yourself. It won't automatically restart. And if the device is left on and then continue to be used, NetSupport School won't be available and the student can't be connected to in a class. Next is the student is stopped and will automatically restart after a certain number of minutes. So if you know that you just need it off for the next hour or so, or you're doing something that might require only a few minutes of time with it being shut off, you can set that time frame. And lastly, student is stopped now and restarted at a specific time. If testing is lasting all day or whatever is going on is lasting for a specific time or going to end at a certain time, you may want to use this option and set the clock for 10 to 15 minutes after as a buffer to ensure that it gets restarted. If the machine is restarted before then by the student manually or by yourself manually, the client will automatically restart then after the reboot is over. Once I've selected that and I've set the time, I can go ahead and click next, follow the steps, and apply that, although I don't want to do that to my students right now. Lastly, you have the chat and messaging feature similar to what the teachers have in NetSupport School. This allows you to open up a single end user or group end users chat to be able to facilitate communication and support back and forth. If you're training students to provide tech support to other students, for example, this can be a great tool because you can have them have access to the tech console as well for support purposes, and you can initiate a chat between yourself, the support student, and also the other end user students, and you can monitor what's going on while the students support each other. Great for a high school or middle school program where you are allowing students to be part of the tech support and learning how to be able to provide that for students. You may also need multiple students or multiple end users in a chat if things are happening to multiple devices at once and you want to provide guidance to all users at once rather than individually so you can solve the problem faster. The messaging tool is a one-way message, so it's going to send the message to the end user and it will disappear after a set amount of time or only when the end user acknowledges it. So please stop playing Minecraft. I can put an icon on here like a warning or a stop. We'll go with a warning. And if I don't set a time, it will be there indefinitely until the student closes it, which I prefer, but you can also set a time for 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds, however many you might need. And you can also have there be an audio indicator, a sound that plays to make sure that they don't miss that notification on their machines. So if I leave that up and send that to my students, you can see loud and clear it's popped up, and the only way to get rid of it is going to be to click OK. So it will supersede other messages on the screen and other open apps on the screen until the student gets rid of it to ensure that they do see the message and they don't miss anything. Now we have had some administrators who've used that messaging feature to send important messages to students that they have students grouped by their grade level or by certain classes, and they want to inform them that it's their time for picture day, but they don't want to disrupt by making announcements over the PA, or if they want to be able to notify individual groups because of something else that's happening, they can use the messaging feature for that. You also have other tabs. The security tab, for example, allows you to create security settings. In this case, it's things like whether or not you want the firewalls to be on, antivirus is active, anti-spyware. All this connects to what you already currently have on your machines, but this is to define what you determine is a secure PC. So if a machine doesn't have all of those things on, then it will notify you that it's an unsecured PC, and you can go in and identify what might be missing. If something got turned off with the firewall, if the antivirus got turned off, if there was a problem with an update, etc. Within the security settings, again, you can go in here and set on or off for firewalls, the updates for Windows, whether or not they should be on, if they should be notifications only, automatic updates, or downloading them and notifying that those are available. So that could be dependent on your network and infrastructure, and you may already have something in place and not need these settings to be turned on inside of NetSupport School. Notice here that it shows me this item is currently indicating the PC is not secure because I don't have a policy on Windows updates, and my definition indicates that I should have a policy set for that. Now, in the group policy management, I can apply specific restrictions for all of my students within the specific group that I've selected. And this can relate to internet and application restrictions, as well as to USB, CD and DVD drive, printer, and webcam restrictions. You likely already have systems in place in the form of a DNS or firewalls, other filtering systems prevent students from accessing very inappropriate content. But by adding this extra policy management for URLs, you may want to block additional websites that aren't deemed insecure or dangerous to students, but are becoming a problem for students. Websites where they would normally be allowed by your firewall or by your filtering system, but are being requested by teachers to be blocked, and you don't want to flag them and misflag them poorly. So I might go in here and I might add certain websites just by typing in the URL, creating a description, clicking OK. We're going to go with Google, which is not a bad website at all. It automatically picks the keyword out as Google. Click OK, and now it's on my list. Now my current mode is unrestricted, but if I apply a restricted mode, that means any student who attempt to go to Google will be blocked from Google because this is not an approved website through my policy management system. We'll go back to unrestricted, that way it doesn't cause any problems. Click on Google and remove that if it's something I no longer wish to block. The same thing happens with applications. I can go in and add applications to my restricted list if there are certain tools I don't want students to be able to launch that they keep installing and keep using on their devices. With USB and DVD drives, CD-DVD drives, it does allow you to allow unrestricted access, block access, or read only. This is helpful during testing times. We'll go back to the testing times again, because if students tend to bring in and try to use materials that are not allowed, i.e. against the cheating policy, and trying to bring in extra materials to help them, you may just want to block access to those drives so they can't bring extra materials and try to access those during tests or during key times during the school year. Once you've made all your changes, click OK, otherwise we'll cancel. The tools section just has the file manager and the edit local registry. The file manager is just going to show you the breakdown of the files on the machines. So rather than it being a file transfer or distribution, it allows me just to manage this student's specific folders on their machine. So if something needs to be added or amended or fixed, if they've gone in and messed around with the folders, I need to make changes, I would use the file manager for that. And here we have the ability to add custom tools. So things that we typically are using to support students, we can go in and find the pathway to that specific tool that we have. I'll pick the service desk login. It grabs the exe, clicks OK. It's going to save it as a tool. I can put on here service desk as a name. I can add any arguments and a note for waiting for the program to finish, and then click OK. And I can run that specific tool once it's been added to the list. Everything's in there, close, grab that and click run, and it'll run that on the student's machine. And lastly, your view menu just changes how you see everything in the NetSupport Tech console. Right now we're seeing everything in the thumbnails view. If I switch to the details view, I can see more information about each device. So the IP address, the username and platform, the client version for NetSupport that they're running, their security status based off of those rules that we set earlier, any policies that are enforced, such as internet or application restrictions, which room they're assigned to, and any open applications or websites that they're running. So a more detailed list of what's happening at the student. If I need to, I can right click on this, and I do have access to all of those tools from the Home tab, the file transfer, all the way down to PowerShell, and the communications tools. So even though my toolbar up top has changed, I still have access to those through the right click. We'll go back to the thumbnail view. There's the ability to show all monitors. If your students have dual monitors, you want to see both of those monitors rather than just the active monitor, you can turn this on, in which case you'll see multiple screens available if the student does have dual monitors that they're showing. The zoom in option just means that when you hover over a student's screen, it will zoom it in and make it larger. So if you do have 30, 100, 5,000 student devices in the tech console, they can all be very small icons, but in this case, I can make a small icon large and make it easier to see what students are doing and to be able to support their machines without having to double click on that and open up a remote session just in case. Now I can also group things in specific ways. I can have a group bar that's up top here. I can group students by room and I can see which room they're assigned to. So if I have students that are unassigned and haven't been assigned to a specific room, I can see those separately. Or if I have multiple rooms available, in which case I may have assigned students to rooms like Computer Lab 1, Computer Lab 3, Engineering Room, things along those lines, then I can see the breakdown of those devices by each individual location. And I can also group teachers, in which case if I have any active teachers, I can see those teachers and which students are assigned to those teachers or actively in that teacher's class. I can also search for students. So I can start searching, and if I type in something, it's going to find that student, in this case, James. So if I'm looking for a specific student and I have hundreds or even thousands of students and I know their name, I can search that. I can also search for specific aspects by the logged on username. Right now it's looking at the PC name. I can look by their IP address, by any applications that are running, or by any websites that they have open. So this is just a great way for me to be able to identify certain content on the devices or certain devices themselves based on those parameters. And I can close that search once I've had those search results down if I need to make a secondary search. Lastly, in the NetSupport Tech Console, the things to remember are that down below, you have the ability to view any connections. If you have multiple connections, I can see all those from a list and I can click on one to be able to go to that specific computer, in this case, the James computer, as I go through. I can go down below and I can organize my students. I can select all of them, or I can invert my selection. So if I'm selecting all of my logged on students, for example, and then I want to select all of my logged off students, I can do that. I can make adjustments to the size of the thumbnails depending on the number of devices that I'm looking at in a group. And I can also flip back and forth between the thumbnail view and the details view. For more information on the NetSupport School Tech Console and a more detailed breakdown of how to use each tool, you can visit netsupportschool.com, click on our Resources tab and open the manual and navigate to the Tech Console section so that you can view those specific breakdowns and a how-to on all the different features.